We begin today's bulletin with an interview I had with sports journalist and administrator Godwin Enakhena on the just concluded Niger Delta Sports Festival and a whole lot of issues bordering on sports here in Nigeria. So far, so good. We've spoken about some of the beautiful things that came out of the Niger Delta Sports Festival. Now let's try to move it up a notch further. You were tasked with meeting some of these athletes, speaking to them, mentoring them, and also help probably position them properly. Talk to us about that particular journey. How easy was it? Because I know that coaches that discover athletes are always very, very cagey about letting those athletes go. Talk to me about it.
Well, thank you, Ron. It was difficult, yeah. I did envisage it. You know, there's something about life. If you have walked through that particular road before, when that assignment comes at the biggest stage, you're ready. You know what to do, how to go about it. The first thing we did in my committee, the Scouting and Mentorship Committee, was to get the best of coaches and scouts from all over Nigeria. Not necessarily from the Niger Delta. I'll give you a quick example. Rekia Mohammed is the head coach of the under-19 women's and volleyball team, precisely. Okay. She came all the way from Jos. And she wasn't coming with her athlete. Remember, this athlete had to come strictly from the Niger Delta state. Yes. So someone in neutral was coming all the way from Jos. We got John Uzo, national. I insisted that there must be national team coaches, people who understand the dynamics of what it means to discover. It was not just about picking elite, it was discover. And these discoveries must be under 16 in most of the cases, 90% as it were. So all the coaches who came from table tennis, to volleyball, to handball, to football, all the sporting events had coaches and scouts. The point I'm trying to make is I was just the chairman of the committee. I was not the one scouting. I had professionals who were scouting. But what I did around that you saw me do, moving from center A to center B to even center Z, was to monitor what they were doing. We also had another subcommittee of people who were not professionals, but they had more than they had knowledge of what sport was all about. So I placed them everywhere. So at the end of the day, we kept saying, even though what you said, there were coaches who came to us to say, oh, you didn't pick my athlete. And we said, sorry, we know what we're looking for. Something also very, very important, we said we're not out there to pick athletes who came first, second, or third. Our job responsibility was, even if the athlete came last, as long as the potential that we want, we have seen that potential, the athlete was good to go. So it was a difficult assignment, but I would say that we passed in flying colors. All right.
Before we talk to Roger, before you give us the lowdown about the future of these people, a very unsavory incident happened. You have been in the system, both as a journalist, a seasoned journalist, and an administrator. How should the Niger Delta Festival organizers jump that hoop or mitigate against such, whereby coaches and administrators within the system are insisting that athletes must be paid through them?
Wow. I envisage this question. It's not, from the get-go. You know, one of the challenges that Malik had, the co-chairman of the Niger Delta Sports Festival, was trying to do things differently. And one of them was no money was going to go through any administrator or a coach. Monies were going to be paid directly into the accounts of these athletes. Today, you hear the stories of athletes have not been paid, and what have you, administrators have not been paid. You know, I'll tell you for free. Every administrator who was accredited to be at the Niger Delta Sport Festival had to submit an account. All the athletes must submit the account. But most of these kids didn't have accounts. So the secretariat said, okay, go open an account, the popular one. OPay, PAMPay, and what are money points. You know, open them and let's do it. A few of them did. Definitely discouraged by their coaches who insisted that monies must be paid to them. They also found out that some of these coaches brought names that were not the athletes' names. The assumption was that the secretariat didn't have what it took to check these things. So by the time they did a back check, you find out that some of the names submitted don't align with the account details that were given. So these are the problem. But I tell you, it's been sorted. Even the secretariat, the organizer said, if you're an athlete, you can't open an account. Let your state, it could be the director of sport, do a letter, put all your names there, put account details. We know that it's coming from the source, and all those monies were paid. You know,
so how do we mitigate against this? Because, because if the athletes insist that they get paid,
yes,
they will be victimized by the coaches.
Yeah.
How have you sorted this?
The athletes were not asking that they be paid. It wasn't their call. It was part of the rules governing the Niger Delta Sport Festival, the first edition, that athletes are going to be paid directly. So all the secretariat just asked for, let's have the account details of these athletes. And that was what they did. Some didn't send on time. It took a long while. You understand, trying to cut corners and what have you. It didn't work. They sent, but before you send money, it will show you the name of the athlete, because we have all the details. The data was well put up. So the names of every athlete, administrator, coaches were right there in the system. So when you punch it, it's Godwin Enakhena, that is the athlete. The name that will show will be Aaron. So how do you pay? So you query that. In the process, there's a back and forth. And the next thing you see on social media, that they have not been paid. But the truth of the matter is, this will continue. The next edition will keep, you see, you can't win this race, but you keep fighting it. And what we're trying to do is to change the narrative. For instance, every athlete administrator accredited that came to the National Delta Sport Festival had allowances every day. But for the athletes that were being fed, including the administrators and the coaches, were fed thrice every day. The organizers felt, okay, at the end of the festival, you pay lump sum.
Okay.
He said, because if you're eating thrice a day, if they give you an allowance, there's a tendency of you trying to waste that money. Let it come in bulk at the end of the festival and you go back home. Don't forget that athletes, officials, and everyone were also transported. They were paid. Everything was paid for.
So now, permit me to say, is this the reason why sports hasn't been able to actualize its full potential? Because we have people within the system that are more self-serving than looking at the big picture.
Well, it's a Nigerian thing. I always say that when some person says sport is not working in Nigeria, my answer, being an administrator who has been doing this for over 30 years, I say, can you show me precisely what is working in your nation? So, everyone seems to have more than a head knowledge of sport. The banking sector, you know, just name it. Everywhere. It's the same practice. But the NDSF achieved the purpose for hosting that festival.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So I think for me, the positives are 99%.
True.
Yeah. What we set out to do was to discover athletes. We discovered over 600 athletes, 90% of them under 16. Like I said, as we speak, 5 of them are in Côte d'Ivoire to represent the national team of Nigeria under 18 in handball.
Wow.
What other success story are you looking for? We have names, we have data of every. In volleyball, just this morning, Rekia Mohammed, the head coach of the under-19 women's volleyball team, sent me a list of 14 players that have been called to camp. In basketball, we have 5 coaches from colleges in America who are coming to Nigeria. They want to see these athletes, basketball players, young basketball players, boys and girls that have been discovered, that they can take to colleges. And the NDDC is saying, I repeat again, the NDDC is saying, for every athlete discovered, they will not stop at discovering. They will continue this process of nurturing and, of course, exposing them at whatever cost. It's different. It's never been done before. We've always done discoveries, and that's where it ends. The NDDC is saying, yes, you have discovered, Godwin. The next stage is we want to nurture. A few days ago, I was asked to assemble the best of coaches that we can have, who can continue with the nurturing of these athletes. And thereafter, we are also interfacing with scouts. That's where the scouts came in. There's the room for a coach. There's also a room for a scout. For instance, we have the NBA coach and scout who saw this athlete. I saw someone from Cuba, a coach from Cuba with the wrestling team of Nigeria. Just yesterday, Happiness Burutu, the assistant coach of the national team of Nigeria in wrestling, who I engaged as one of the scouts and coaches at the NDSF. She said to me, she has found the new Odwanyode Koroye. She has just found another blessing Oborodudu. Wow. I am a satisfied person.
All right, satisfied person. Now, let's move away from the Niger Delta Sports Festival. Look at sports generally in Nigeria. As a man that has sat at both sides of the table, or still sits at both sides.
I'm still there.
Yes, very much there, at both sides of the table, talking about the reportage of sports. Because someone tried to ring home a point that the reason why sports is not growing, part of the reason why sports is not growing in Nigeria is that the coverage of sports is still extremely poor and still very backward. Where we find ourselves today, would you say that sports journalists have not risen to the times when it comes to how media is transiting with AI, big data, and the rest of them becoming a thing? Talk to us about sports journalism and the changing times.
Well, the narrative sometimes is not encouraging. I give my colleagues kudos. I remember in those days, the first thing we were told, I'll give you a good example. Many years ago, I was working for a general interest sports paper, Today's Sport, and I was the international correspondent. There was a cover story. I was most times providing the cover stories as a specialized paper. We had the story of Rashidi Yekini. So we put the story there, twilight of his career. We put the story here. Then we used to consult vendors. So we called them in before the paper would go to bed, and we asked them, this is the cover story for tomorrow's paper. What do you think? And the vendor said, Rashidi Yekini does not sell paper anymore. Oh, wow. For us, it was a big story. They said no. But again, we just said to ourselves, let's do what we need to do. We put the paper out there. Aaron, the unsold that we got, maybe 1% of that paper was sold.
Wow.
What am I saying? They say in this business, you give to the people what they want. So for me, my colleagues are doing enough. And what it says right now is you have to report foreign sport. That is not to say you should not report the local sports. Some of them who carry their cameras, their pens to talk to people in the football business, they will tell you, leave football, boys, and RNG, we know we win the league, we know we do this and that. Some of those narratives cannot go away just like that. The administrators need to work. That's where we come in. Do better than what we are doing now. How can we solve this issue? You watch the private leagues that they have in Nigeria. There's a TCC in Lagos. The coverage is unbelievable. The followership is unbelievable. But here you hear that once government is involved, it cannot work. And I want to say that until government plays its role first and foremost, which is to provide an enabling environment. Number two, provide infrastructure and equipment. And number three, grants will continue to be where we are today. Government is not in the business of making profit. Government is in the business of rendering services. Let government leave our sport alone.
Let government leave our sport alone. But people will still say that the biggest business in Nigeria is government business.
Of course.
And it's still government that can infuse the cash to be able to build structures, infrastructures, and also create the enabling environment for sports to thrive. That's what they say. So my own question is, when
Aaron, I'm on the inside.
yes,
And I speak like a man on the inside. So, club administrator, club chairman, president of all the 36 clubs in the Nigerian League, member of the Nigeria Football Federation Media Group. What do you want to tell me? I've seen it all. I'm the chairman of Sporting Lagos. A young man left America, and he said he wanted to start a football club. Shola Kirande, we all know him, the owner of Paystack. And I said to him, Shola, sorry, don't even keep your money, spend it somewhere else. He looked at me and he said, sir, that's the more reason he wants to do it. I said, you're ready for the challenge? He said, yes. Okay. I saw it as a challenge for a young man who is not even up to 40 years to leave his comfort zone in America, to bring his money to Nigeria. Well, I told him I'm going to fly with him. We started Sporting Lagos, 2021. And like I always boast, and I say this, I said, in less than 2 years, we'll play in the Premier League. It was war. We got into the Premier League. We went down. We all knew why we went down. After that, the young man decided to build a stadium. I'm talking about facility, I'm coming there. To build a stadium where football can be played. And he went to the seaside landmark, built a stadium 90%. We were to play Enyimba Football Club in that stadium. Everything you needed was there. A template. The Germans had built the foundation, everything. Money Michel laying the turf. And we just heard about the coastal line. The coastal line took it away. I didn't spend a dime. I'm talking about a young man who spent billions building it's not difficult building a facility. When you have the kind of passion that Shola, has. You can imagine his heartbreak when the first time they said that facility was okay, no problem with the coastal line. Then they now said there was a realignment. It was the realignment that took a facility that would have, engaged you. You change the narrative of you going to landmark, not just to go and have fun, watch football. You can imagine, just inside the waters. Honorable Kule Shonama, Enakhena has built facilities unprecedented. They're not government. Shola built a facility, it's not government. Churchill has a facility, it is not government. Let government say we are not, let's follow the Lagos template. Lagos State, Aaron, you're aware, from Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as governor of Lagos State, facilities were what? Built by government. Government never owned a football club. Lagos State, from him to BRF, no football club. After him, Akim Yambode, no football club. Now we have someone no football club. It is not that they have not been pressured into getting into football. I talk about personalizing this. I'm the director of sport, Mountain of Fire Miracles Ministries. When in 2017, MFM Football Club, we all know MFM Football Club, qualified to represent Nigeria in the CAF Champions League and CAF Confederation Cup, I went to meet the governor, Governor Ambode, and he gave us what you call grants. That's the role of government in sport. For us to play on the continent. Let's come back to 2019. MFM Women Basketball Club had just qualified to represent Nigeria on the continent of Africa. I went to meet Governor Sanwo-Olu. He gave us grants to go to Liberia and Dakar, Senegal. Just last year, December, how many months ago? MFM Women Basketball Club won the league again. They're the defending champions of the league in Nigeria. I went to meet the governor again, Governor Sanwo-Olu, and I said, sir, what the government does is the grant. How can you support us? It was the reason we represented Nigeria. So for anyone saying that government, without government, let government answer football. Let government answer sport. My guy, you will see how sport will thrive in Nigeria. And I want to end by saying, government, again, is not in the business of making profit. Government is in the business of doing what? Providing so-called.
So now, what's the role of the Nigeria Football Federation and now the NSC in helping to reshape sports here in Nigeria?
The best thing that has happened to sport in the last couple of months is the appointment of my friend and brother, Shehu Diko, as the chairman of the National Sports Commission. And of course, someone who understands the dynamics of the business of sport, Bukola Olopade. I think sport is safe in their hands.
But some will say that it's an aberration not having a Ministry of Sports, because even though they are trying to push to make it happen, that they do not have a voice within the Federal Executive Council. So to be able to push in some major projects will be difficult. That is what some of the directors have said.
Aaron, information is key. It's very important. That's what we're taught in this business. If you don't have source, you don't have information, then you are in trouble. I can tell you for free that Shehu Diko works directly, more like a cabinet person, walks straight to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. He doesn't go through a third party. Yeah, I can tell you for free. It works that is more or less a cabinet member.
But some administrators feel he's an outsider in the whole cabinet of things.
Whoever says that is a learner. It's a Johnny just come. Shehu has been in sport for forever. I mean, go back to those days. The good times of Nigerian football have been under Shehu. Maybe they just knew when he became chairman of the League Management Committee, the LMC. No, before then, Shehu, go and check all the pictures. His pedigree, his antecedents are intimidating. He's a man who lives sport. He's a man who sleeps sport. He knows where the challenges are. Remember, for 8 years or 12 years, Shehu Diko wanted to be chairman or president of Nigerian Football Federation. He didn't know that God had a different plan for him. Today, not just president of football, is the president of all the sports in Nigeria.
He's the president of presidents.
Exactly. So you understand the dynamics. And the other question about the Nigerian Football Federation, for the first time we have a man who is not talking. He's saying, let what I do speak for me. He hardly will grant interviews. If the Super Eagles are not doing well, you have been there. It has nothing to do with Ibrahim Goso. The players need to play. The players need to stand. I had over 2 hours of conversation with Peter Rufai yesterday. And I asked him, gone are the days that you see a bloodied Taribo West playing for Nigeria. Gone are the days when Peter Rufai walks through the tunnel, you will fear. You see fear in the opponent's faces. That's why Clement Vessels called him a lion. In their days, they were out to play football. He told me a story of, was it 82 or 84? They were playing the Nations Cup, and they had to play Egypt to beat Egypt. After they were go down, and the late Anthony Kazubo, who was the Minister of Sport or NFA chairman, then walked into the dressing room, and he told them, he said, guys, if you don't win this game, you're all going to do dambaras. You're all going to be locked up. And he said he busted out crying. He said, why he was crying? Keshi was crying. Everybody crying. I asked him, I said, were you crying because you were scared of sleeping in the cell? He said, no. It was a case of, we are better than these people. This is what we live for. Let's go out there. He said, by the time they were coming out, the leader, the boss, Stephen Keshi told them, he said, your life, your family, your reputation is at stake. Guys, let's go out there and get it done. And they won that game. These days, we have TikTok players, our Super Eagles players. It's not they are TikToking while they are playing football in their subconscious. Or they are TikToking while they are on the bench. I mean, I've never seen that before. Players who play. When was the last time you saw a Super Eagles player cry? Or in a bad mood because they lost?
But some will say that it's because the Nigerian Football Federation did not live up to their own side of the bargain. Players have been owed.
Aaron, listen to me. Listen to me attentively. I've said something. If Arise invites me, or I work for Arise pays me what we agreed on, and they don't pay me when they are supposed to, I take a walk. If you put on the green white of Nigeria, if you are invited, remember, FIFA didn't and never will say that you must play for a nation. You know this very well. The rules are very clear. You are not forced to play for your country. You can decide not to play because Nigeria is not treating me well. It is not by force to play for Nigeria. If you know that they are not treating you well, please don't come. You know that some of these players, they need some certain percentage of matches they have played for the national team to have their residency renewed.
True, in their respective clubs.
In their respective club sites.
Club sites and the country.
There are players who are flown in chartered planes. When was the last time you were flown in a chartered plane? Here are players who live in luxuries when they are with Nigeria. They stay in the best hotels, 5-star hotel. Here are players who are flown most times, if not chartered, business class. They don't fly economy. These are players that win and they pay them $10,000 each right there instantaneously. They say it's a privilege to play for Nigeria. It is not a matter of life and death to play for your country. If your country is not treating you well, take a walk. It's as simple as that. You are playing. You know what it means? If we miss Qatar, look at what it did to a lot of our players. Those who would have gone to bigger club sites missed that opportunity. Sure. We played a game in New York. Everybody was joking. They were just moving around. And the young man I call proper number 9, Victor Osimhen, got angry and walked away. That was the egos we used to know. Some person are saying he overdid it. The young man wants to kill himself. He's the only one you see. He gives everything. You lose. I cried, the last time I cried for Nigeria, Super Eagles, was 1994 Nations Cup. Because I saw the players crying. And I said, wow. Today, the players finish the game, it's up to the next club. Nightclub, defeat or victory. Leave the NFF alone.
Finally, we do qualify for the World Cup.
I have never told you I'm a prophet. I'm not about to be one. I'm just God doing Enakhena. Yes, it is doable. I see us going through the back door, and that could be the playoffs. You come second, you go for
playoffs is gone. It's gone.
Like I said,
it's gone.
It's not gone if we win our games. We have to win.
No, but the point is, the reason why I say that is, there are people in the playoffs that already have 15, 14 points.
We can.
With the same number of games to spare.
We can get it. Just believe. I'm seeing Nigeria going through the back door. And that back door could be the second place. Win all your remaining matches. I'm not saying we will come first. We can still come first. If we go to South Africa, which some people think is not doable, and beat South Africa, win our remaining games, Aaron will go to the World Cup.
I want to say thank you very much for stopping by today and sharing your wealth of wisdom with us.
Thank you.
And hopefully this will not be your last.
No.
We'll be having you probably in subsequent bulletins.